As sport optimized at home, it expanded outward, reshaping culture across borders and standardizing competition worldwide. Once sport was structured, monetized, and measurable, its next evolution was scale beyond borders. Expansion no longer meant simply adding teams or leagues. It meant exporting systems. The modern game began moving across nations, carrying its rules, governance models, media structures, and financial logic with it. Globalization did not begin as a cultural mission. It began as opportunity. Markets existed beyond domestic boundaries. Audiences abroad had access to media. Capital recognized potential. Authority adapted, positioning sport as universal language while maintaining control over structure. Rules were standardized to ensure compatibility. Formats aligned so competitions could interconnect. Governing bodies coordinated schedules across continents. What had once been regional variation gave way to international consistency. Sport learned to travel efficiently. This movement reshaped identity. Teams and leagues began cultivating fans who had no geographic proximity to them. Loyalty detached from place and attached to brand. Authority reinforced this detachment through global marketing campaigns, emphasizing symbols over locality. Athletes became international figures. Recruitment crossed borders. Talent pipelines expanded. Authority managed eligibility, transfers, and competition frameworks to maintain order across jurisdictions. Governance grew more complex, but also more centralized. Global tournaments amplified this shift. Events framed as international celebrations consolidated authority at the highest levels. Participation required alignment with standardized structures. Local nuance diminished in favor of coherence. Media facilitated expansion. Broadcast rights crossed oceans instantly. Attention no longer depended on time zone alone. Sport existed continuously, unfolding in cycles across regions. Authority optimized scheduling for global consumption. This integration carried consequence. Wealthier markets influenced decision-making disproportionately. Resource imbalances widened between regions. Authority preserved unity rhetorically while managing inequality practically. Standardization ensured recognizability. A game watched in one country resembled its counterpart elsewhere. Consistency built brand trust. Authority favored uniformity over variation, reducing unpredictability in format while preserving unpredictability in outcome. Yet globalization also expanded opportunity. Athletes from previously peripheral regions gained access to international stages. Audiences encountered unfamiliar styles and traditions. Authority balanced openness with control. Cultural exchange occurred within limits. Sport appeared universal, but governance structures reflected dominant economic centers. Expansion did not dissolve hierarchy. It redistributed participation within existing frameworks. This phase completed the outward expansion of the system. Sport was no longer national or regional. It was global, standardized, monetized, measured, and integrated into international markets. The next slide explores how this global structure shapes power dynamics today, how authority coordinates across borders, and what pressures threaten cohesion in a standardized world game. As sport expanded across borders, governance had to evolve with it. Local authority was no longer sufficient to manage international schedules, transfers, tournaments, and eligibility. Power began consolidating upward into federations, confederations, and global governing bodies tasked with coordinating the standardized game. This coordination required alignment. Rules needed consistency across continents. Disputes required arbitration structures that transcended national law. Authority positioned itself as neutral organizer, but neutrality masked concentration of influence. Those who controlled global frameworks shaped the future of the sport. International calendars became complex negotiations. Domestic leagues competed with continental competitions. Global tournaments demanded priority. Authority mediated these conflicts, often favoring events with the highest visibility and revenue potential. Expansion intensified scheduling strain. Player movement exposed further tension. Transfers across borders introduced regulatory challenges. Contracts, labor laws, compensation systems. Authority implemented standardized transfer windows and eligibility guidelines to prevent chaos. Mobility increased, but it was carefully structured. Global broadcasting magnified disparities. Wealthier regions commanded larger audiences, attracting disproportionate investment. Authority distributed revenue through structured agreements, yet inequality persisted. Expansion did not flatten hierarchy, it globalized it. Cultural identity adapted under this system. Clubs and leagues marketed themselves as global brands, while international competitions emphasized national pride. Authority balanced dual loyalties, ensuring global coherence did not erase local resonance. Political pressure entered governance more visibly. International tournaments required cooperation with governments. Infrastructure projects intersected with public policy. Authority navigated diplomatic landscapes, reinforcing its influence beyond sport. Standardization strengthened predictability, but limited variation. Local rule differences diminished. Authority prioritized compatibility over experimentation. The game became recognizable everywhere, but increasingly shaped by centralized decision-making. Resistance occasionally surfaced. Domestic leagues challenged global scheduling demands. Players voiced concerns about workload. Smaller federations questioned revenue allocation. Authority responded through negotiation rather than decentralization, preserving structural unity. Technology facilitated coordination. Communication networks allowed real-time governance across time zones. Data tracking ensured compliance. Authorities' reach expanded as oversight tools improved. Despite consolidation, fragmentation remained possible. Competing leagues explored breakaway models. Investors evaluated alternative structures. Authority maintained dominance by controlling legitimacy, recognition, ranking systems, and qualification pathways. The global system proved resilient because it combined cultural appeal with institutional strength. Participation spanned continents. Identity crossed languages. Authority managed this scale through layered governance, distributing responsibility while retaining ultimate oversight. Yet, expansion carried cost. Travel demands increased fatigue. Economic disparities widened. Smaller markets struggled to compete. Authority addressed these issues incrementally, careful not to disrupt the overarching framework. Sport now existed as a synchronized global enterprise. Matches unfolded daily across regions. Markets reacted instantly. Authority coordinated through shared standards and centralized oversight. The next stage of evolution lies in how this global system responds to pressure. Economic volatility, political instability, and technological disruption test cohesion. Standardization creates strength, but it also creates vulnerability. When governance is centralized and scale is global, failure resonates widely. Authority must adapt continuously to preserve legitimacy. The world game endures not because it is static, but because it adjusts without surrendering control. Globalization did not dilute authority, it expanded it. But expansion requires maintenance. The balance between unity and autonomy grows more delicate with each season. As the global structure of sport solidified, inequality became more visible. Expansion had widened participation, but it had also concentrated power. Wealth, infrastructure, and media exposure clustered in dominant regions, while others struggled to keep pace. Authority maintained the language of unity, yet the system revealed imbalance. Revenue distribution exposed this divide most clearly. Broadcast agreements in major markets generated disproportionate income. Global governing bodies redistributed portions through structured programs, but redistribution never fully closed the gap. Authority prioritized stability over equalization, reinforcing hierarchy while presenting cohesion. Competitive imbalance followed financial imbalance. Clubs and leagues with greater resources secured superior facilities, deeper talent pools, and advanced analytics departments. Smaller organizations relied on development pipelines that often fed talent upward. Authority regulated transfers and compensation, but disparity remained structural. International tournaments highlighted tension. While framed as celebrations of global inclusion, qualification pathways favored established powers. Infrastructure demands limited hosting opportunities to wealthier nations. Authority balanced spectacle with diplomacy, yet decisions frequently reflected economic practicality. Regional federations voiced concerns about influence. Voting structures within global bodies appeared representative, but informal power aligned with financial weight. Authority maintained legitimacy through procedural transparency, while strategic decisions occurred within concentrated circles. Player workload intensified under globalization. International competitions overlapped domestic calendars. Travel spanned continents. Authority mediated scheduling conflicts, yet commercial imperatives often prevailed. Athlete health became subject to negotiation rather than priority. Cultural homogenization also emerged as concern. Standardization ensured global compatibility, but local traditions eroded. Unique styles and regional formats adapted to align with international frameworks. Authority framed this convergence as modernization. Political friction occasionally surfaced. International events intersected with national agendas. Boycotts, protests, and diplomatic disputes tested governance neutrality. Authority navigated these tensions carefully, emphasizing sport's universality while avoiding overt alignment. Technological infrastructure amplified inequality. Advanced training systems, performance tracking, and media production capabilities favored affluent regions. Authority promoted development initiatives, but adoption rates varied widely. Breakaway threats underscored vulnerability. Wealthy leagues explored autonomous structures, seeking greater control over revenue and scheduling. Authority responded by reinforcing regulatory frameworks and emphasizing collective legitimacy. Unity became strategic necessity. Despite imbalance, the system endured because it delivered value. Global tournaments commanded attention. Brands reached new audiences. Authorities' centralized structure ensured continuity. Expansion created complexity, but also resilience. Yet resilience depends on adaptation. Economic downturns, geopolitical instability, and shifting audience preferences challenge centralized models. Authority must balance reform with preservation, addressing inequality without destabilizing scale. Global sport now operates as interconnected network. Decisions ripple across borders instantly. A rule change in one region affects competition elsewhere. Authority coordinates through committees, councils, and federations to maintain alignment. This interconnectedness strengthens visibility, but increases fragility. When crises emerge, their impact multiplies globally. Authorities' legitimacy hinges on response speed and transparency. The standardized world game has achieved unprecedented reach. Participation spans continents. Audiences engage across time zones. Governance structures maintain order at scale. The final slide examines what this mature global system implies for the future. Can centralized authority sustain legitimacy amid inequality? Will regional autonomy reassert itself? Or will globalization deepen further, consolidating power even more tightly? Sport has traveled far from its local origins. It now exists everywhere at once. The challenge ahead lies in managing that reach without losing the diversity and unpredictability that made expansion possible. As globalization matured, the tension between unity and autonomy intensified. The standardized world game depended on central coordination, yet local identity remained its emotional foundation. Authority walked a careful line, preserving global cohesion while preventing regional disengagement. Local leagues increasingly questioned scheduling priorities imposed by international bodies. Domestic competitions fueled grassroots loyalty, while global tournaments commanded broader visibility. Authority mediated this friction through calendar reforms and negotiated agreements, attempting to protect both revenue streams. Economic imbalance sharpened demands for autonomy. Wealthier clubs and federations sought greater control over commercial rights and competition structures. Smaller regions demanded stronger redistribution. Authority responded through incremental reform rather than structural overhaul, preserving hierarchy under the banner of solidarity. Athlete advocacy gained strength within this environment. Travel demands, compressed seasons, and overlapping competitions amplified workload concerns. Unions and player associations pressed for representation in governance decisions. Authority acknowledged participation, but maintained final authority over scheduling and format. Cultural preservation movements also emerged. Regions emphasized distinctive playing styles and local traditions, resisting homogenization. Authority balanced celebration of diversity with enforcement of standardized rules necessary for international compatibility. Technological access widened participation in some areas while deepening disparity in others. Digital platforms allowed emerging regions to showcase talent globally. Yet monetization remained concentrated in established markets. Authority promoted development programs, but structural inequality persisted. Political dynamics continued to influence global events. Hosting decisions intersected with national prestige and economic strategy. Authority emphasized neutrality while navigating complex diplomatic landscapes. Legitimacy required visible fairness. Despite tension, the global system offered undeniable opportunity. Athletes from historically marginalized regions gained international recognition. Fans experienced cross-cultural competition previously unimaginable. Authority leveraged this narrative of expansion to reinforce unity. Yet unity remained conditional. When commercial priorities conflicted with local interests, fractures appeared. Authority preserved cohesion through negotiation rather than decentralization, ensuring that global frameworks remained intact. The world game now functions as intricate network of shared governance and layered interests. Its strength lies in coordination. Its vulnerability lies in over-centralization. Expansion has made retreat unlikely, but adaptation essential. The final slide reflects on the long arc of sports evolution, from informal play to global institution, and what pressures may define its next transformation in an increasingly interconnected world. Sport now exists at a scale unimaginable in its earliest forms. What began as localized competition has become synchronized global enterprise, standardized, monetized, broadcast, and governed across continents. Authority operates not within a single community, but across networks of federations, markets, and cultures. Yet, expansion has not erased tension. Unity requires coordination. Coordination requires centralization. And centralization inevitably concentrates power. The standardized world game thrives on global reach, but it depends on local loyalty to sustain meaning. Every match now unfolds within overlapping systems, rules shaped by international committees, schedules negotiated across time zones, athletes recruited from multiple continents, and audiences dispersed worldwide. The game appears universal, but its governance reflects economic and political realities. Globalization strengthened sport by connecting it. It also made it more fragile. Decisions resonate instantly. Inequality becomes visible quickly. Authority must respond to pressures that move faster than ever before. Still, the core remains unchanged. Competition retains uncertainty. Emotion still transcends language. Identity still forms around teams and nations. The systems surrounding the game have expanded dramatically, but the appeal of play endures. The future of sport will depend on how this global structure balances scale with fairness, coordination with autonomy, and expansion with authenticity. The world game is now everywhere at once. Whether it remains inclusive and unpredictable will depend on how carefully authority manages the space between control and freedom.